typically, at least in my experience, people don't come to Calvinism just by reading the Bible.
When I showed up to Southwestern Seminary back in 1979, I was a young pastor and trying to sort out what the Bible actually taught about any number of subjects. I was preaching week by week, and there's challenges of trying to make sure I understood the text, and I was in need of great help. My first professor was Tom Nettles, and I remember going through those church history lessons with him, and it seemed like I wound up on the wrong side of every essential argument in church history. I thought Pelagius was a good guy and Augustine was a bad guy. I thought that Hincmar of Rheims was a good guy and Gottschalk was a bad guy, and that Erasmus was a good guy and Luther was a bad guy. And so I finally went to see Dr. Nettles. I said, I don't understand this. According to my notes, these guys that you say are Orthodox Christians are in the wrong, and the ones that you say were heretics or heterodox are in the right. And I said, maybe my notes are wrong. And he said, no, your notes are correct, you're wrong. And he began to challenge me. And so we went through some Bible studies together. He pressed me on scripture, texts that I had just never really taken seriously before. And then following that, while I was in this turmoil, trying to sort out everything that I had been challenged with historically to go back into the scriptures, I took Dr. Curtis Vaughan for my New Testament Greek. And I remember we were going through the book of Ephesians, and very early in chapter 4, one of the men who was responsible for reading that verse out loud and then relating it in its context and doing a little exegesis on it, he said, Dr. Vaughan, I know what this says, but what does it mean? And Dr. Vaughan looked at him and the rest of the class. He said, son, it means exactly what it says, that God loved us before the foundation of the world. And in love, he predestined us that we should be adopted according as his sons. So that put me further on this pathway of looking into the scriptures. And as I did that, continuing to study New Testament Greek, I realized very quickly, over the course of probably 7 or 8 months, that I wasn't sure what the Bible taught about the sovereignty of God and salvation, but I became quickly convinced that what I had believed or taken for granted without really studying it real carefully could not be true. And so I had to just lay everything on the table, go back into the scriptures and humble myself before the Word. And as I did, it changed quite a bit in my thinking, and it made me go back and read the scriptures seemingly for the first time. That's the way it felt to me. But everything began to open up to me. I began to see how Scripture interprets Scripture. I began to see the relationship between the Old and the New Testaments in a way that I had not before, and promise and fulfillment and prophecies of God that were not just good guesses by those Old Testament prophets, but those were the things which God inspired them to speak that he had already ordained to come to pass. And there are questions I still don't understand today. I can't tell you fully, philosophically, with a satisfactory answer, how a person can be free, can be completely responsible before God, and yet God be completely sovereign in every aspect of that person's life. And yet it's true. That's what the Bible teaches. And so I came, I think, a more humble hermeneutic, a more humble way of approaching the scriptures. And rather than taking my philosophical presuppositions and the spirit of the age in which I grew up to try to understand the scriptures and make them conform to my preconceived notions, God humbled me and continues to work that in me to submit my mind to Scripture so that I'm learning more and more how to think God's thoughts after Him. And that's the way that I became convinced of the doctrines of God's sovereign grace.
Now, you may have a testimony of somebody who has. Congratulations.